youth unemployment in China is off the hook. There are simply not enough jobs for the university graduates, and this is 100% a sign that the Chinese economy is failing. Is it really, though? Let's talk about it. 大家好，我是 Surat 在中国. Hey everyone, it's Surat in China. How y'all doing today? I hope you're having a lovely day. I'm having a great day as always over here in China, and it gets better and better all the time thanks to my great viewers. So many of you are starting to support the channel, not only by hitting that subscribe button below, and if you like the content, throwing me a thumbs up, but I've gotten quite a few cups of coffee as a show of appreciation from my fans. Thank you so much, 谢谢你们. And if you wanted to buy me a cup of coffee, it's really easy. All you've got to do is check out the QR codes above, or there are a couple links down in the description below. Or you could even become a channel member, and for the price of a cup of coffee, you would get early access to all of my videos before they are released to the general YouTube population. But enough about that for now. Let's talk about students. Now, there's been a lot of hype recently from the China haters, the anti-China content creators, and the mainstream media about youth unemployment and what a serious, serious condition this is in China. Why? Because it's an indicator of the overall economic collapse and failure of the Chinese system. Because if the young people coming out of university can't find jobs, that means there are no jobs. And what a terrible and horrible condition this is. However, there's a lot more to the story than just that. Most sources will put the Chinese youth unemployment at about 16.9% for ages 15 to 24 years old. And they'll say that, wow, 16.9%, that is so high. That is so much higher than anywhere else in the world that it must be an indication of no jobs and economic failure. But what they don't look at is comparing that number, that ridiculously high number, to other countries. So let me show you. Now, according to the sources that I've found, for Canada in February of 2025, the youth unemployment rate for 15 to 24-year-olds is 12.9%, which is a decrease from both August and December of 2024 from 14.2%. So 14.2% that's fine. That's fine. That's not an indication that the economy is failing. But 16.9, that 2.7% difference, end of the world. The sky is falling. The economy is crashing. Now, America's a little better. So if we look at the American numbers for February 2025 for youth unemployment from 16 to 24, which I think leaves out a large demographic, which would actually increase that number substantially. But they're saying it was 9.7%. So nowhere near as disastrous as China, and heck, way better even than Canada. But what do those numbers actually even mean? This is just giving an overall guesstimate of how many kids are not working in that country at that time. And yes, China's numbers are higher, but is that an indicator of economic failure? Well, there are a couple factors that they don't want to tell you about in the mainstream media, and certainly the naysayers and anti-China haters don't want you to know. And that is, there are a couple of factors which are playing very heavily on these numbers. First and foremost, back 5 years ago, there was this situation in the world. What was it called? COVID. Oh yeah, COVID, where essentially the economies of the entire world shut down. Lockdowns, businesses stopped, schools stopped, Universities stopped. It was a huge deal. You may have remembered it. So that meant that in China, who actually enforced lockdowns much more strictly than other places, a lot of the industry, including education, either went remote or stopped entirely. So that put a monkey wrench in the gears. So students that would have normally been graduating in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 were not. Their lives were put on hold. As China has more university students and postgraduate students than any other country, this is a huge number of people. So when the universities did reopen and people started flooding back to those universities, wouldn't it make sense that around, I don't know, 2024, 2025, there would be more graduates than in the past? It kind of fits in with the narrative, doesn't it? That once the universities are fully opened and now all of the students are flooding back in to finish those 4-year programs, that there would be more graduates than before. Would it also make sense that those companies that had to shut down, that had to lock down or slow down because of the global economy, might take a little bit of time to build up steam again, to bring their workforce back up to full, to start opening new companies and new enterprises for these new graduates to go into? But they don't ever mention that. They always seem to conveniently forget this global pandemic, which shut the entire world down for several years. So it kind of makes sense in my mind that there might be more graduates in every country than there were 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Okay. Now, on top of that, there's another thing that's even more important. Now, these metrics that I showed you here show 15 to 24 years old. Now, America, I think this is an unfair estimate because it's not including the 15-year-olds, because I think there are a lot more unemployed 15-year-olds in America that would bring this number down, but let's leave it as is. I'm going to assume that this is the number for 15 to 24-year-olds. Now, in North America, in Canada and America, it is very common when kids turn 15 to go out and get part-time jobs, to go out and get oftentimes full-time jobs, because especially in the global economy right now, and North America in particular, the cost of living has gone through the roof. North American families simply do not have the means and the finances that they used to. So, if that kid wants a new iPhone or a new bike or to go to the movies with his friends and his parents are living paycheck to paycheck, are they going to be able to give that kid that money? Or is that kid going to have to go out and work and get a job in order to pay for those things that traditionally in the past the parents would have given them allowance or just bought the things for them? I think there is a much higher prevalence of kids working in North America, especially now where their parents are either both working or or working several jobs, right? When I was back in Canada, I worked 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. And now I'm back in China and retired. But that's a different story. Anyway, Chinese kids, on the other hand, traditionally do not work while they go to school. So from that age period of 15 to 18, 3 years, kids do not in China have jobs. In rural areas or family run businesses, it might be a case that the kids help out, but they are not jobs. They would not be listed anywhere as being employed. They would just be helping their families. But when it comes to general employment, part-time jobs, full-time jobs, even paper routes, it does not exist in China for 15 to 18-year-old kids, period. I've been a junior middle school and middle school teacher, junior high and high school for those in Canada, for a decade. I have often, when giving my English classes about jobs and working to my students, posed the question, do any of you have part-time jobs? I have never, ever in a decade received a single student say, yes, I have a job. Not one. I have known hundreds and hundreds of parents in China of students, and none of their kids have jobs either. It is just traditionally uncommon. Kids in China do not work while they go to school, period. School is the time for learning and dedicating your time to your education. It is even incredibly uncommon for school age kids under the age of 18 to even date or have a girlfriend because it is seen as a distraction from the schoolwork and could actually be penalized by not just the parents, but by the school system itself. Whether you think that's too cruel or not, it doesn't change the fact that students in China are students, period. And once they get to that 19 to 24-year-old range, if they are university students and they're studying in a very advanced and difficult course, chances are those kids will stay living at home and not have jobs either for the entirety of their university career because the parents will pay for it. I know, I paid for my daughter's education myself. This is also incredibly common. So, having a son who's 21, 22, 23, or even 24 years old living at home and going to university and not having a job to support that is perfectly normal and very, very common. Now, if the student decides not to go to university after the mandatory high school education, of course, then they're going to go out and get a job. And then they're going to go out and start searching. So, this number of 16.9% unemployment is highly skewed because it's looking at mostly just the older students who have either finished university or are almost finished university, and neglecting to mention that the vast majority of the students before that, they're not working anyway. It is traditionally uncommon for kids to have jobs in China. So, yes, as much as the China haters would have us believe that a high youth unemployment rate is a terrible thing and a sign of economic failure and collapse, that's simply not the case. The combined effects of COVID and the global slowdown of industry is one factor, and the other factor is simply kids here don't work. I've never known an 18-year-old or under that had a job, period. It doesn't happen. So when it comes to these metrics, it skews them completely and turns a molehill into a mountain. And it's very convenient for the haters who don't give you the full details. But anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you once again for listening to my rants about China. I really do truly appreciate it. And I do once again appreciate all of my supporters who are really helping the channel to grow. I appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, Jen.